Welcome back to Briggs on Books. Are you getting ready to pick your next book, your next read, or your next book to put on the stack? Or are you looking around for gifts to give during this holiday season? Any of those reasons you buy your books, we're happy with them. And we find more people buy books from people they know a little bit. So we do these little interviews to let you know the author a little bit about the author, their why they wrote the book, how they wrote the book, and maybe sooner or later we'll figure out how people get these books published, because I sure can't do that. Many of our viewers cannot. And it's a theme in our shows. Welcome our guest. By the way, there's Out of Need, and this is a fantastic book. It has my personal attention because some things I went through in my life. But here's the author of Out of Need, Suzanne Oliphant. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me.
You had quite a journey to get where you are now. You decided to be a foster parent?
I did. Yep. That's not in the book, though.
Now,
actually.
That part's not in the book?
No, that's not. The book actually is almost 450 pages, but it's from right before my birth up until I was 48, and I didn't start foster care until I was 48.
Wow.
Yeah. It's right at the very end of the book.
Yeah.
So lots of fun, lots of events in this book.
Something, though, that happened, I'll get back to the book in a minute, but what intrigued me is you decided, rather than as a foster parent, rather than just warehousing kids, you were going to change their lives, help them get ready for real life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How I got into foster care was I used to work at the Sheriff's Youth Programs. It was a residential facility. And I'll tell you something, my heart broke every time an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old would be on the phone and their parents said, "You can't come home anymore."
Wow.
They had no place to go, and no one would take them.
Yeah.
And that was me going, I'm going to do something about this.
I can make something. You did make a change.
I did. I did foster care for 16 years.
Wow.
And I wrote a book for it. I wrote my second book, which was Growing Up, the pros and cons of learning life skills, independent living skills for transitioning out of home. And I wrote that for my foster kids so that when they left, they had something to take with them, or for anybody that needed that type of, it's actually a workbook.
Ah, nice.
And and what it does, though, it goes through with a parent, and a parent goes through, and these kids they read things and they answer questions, and then the parent will answer it. And it's an excellent way to get to know a kid, to know what they're thinking, to know what they're going to say, what they're going to do. I had one foster kid say to me, "God, maybe I do have, an internet addiction."
Nice.
And it was amazing. He didn't know it. He didn't realize it until he went through the workbook. So, yeah. So that was, foster care was something for me.
Yeah. Now, all of your books are written as S. Oliphant.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Yep.
let's get to the subject at hand, Out of Need. Is this a memoir?
It is. It's about my life. Again, starting right prior to when I was born. It explains my family situation. We were very poor. There was just 3 of them starting out. I have 5 in my family, five siblings. And the first 3, they really had a rough life. It was very tough. And then my dad was drafted into World War II.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and he was blown off a tank, and then he was at a hospital, MIA, in France, and finally he came home, and then we had 2 more. But the real problem is that I was 9 years after the next youngest.
Oh, boy.
So my oldest brother is like 16 years older than me. My sister is 14. The other brother is 12. And then the next brother is 9 years older than me. So I was definitely an accident and definitely not wanted. It was very obvious because they were so poor. People thought, why did she get pregnant again? And why are they, and my family situation was really bad. My parents fought all the time. So they had a lot of bad things going on in their lives. People really looked down at that time on people that were having kids and couldn't afford them, and they couldn't get along either. So I started out in a real bad place. And as it goes on, there's a lot of neglect. There's a lot of verbal abuse, and there's molestation. And I started to make bad choices. And a lot of those bad choices is because I had no support. I had no one teaching me. I had no advice. I just had nothing. There was nothing there. And that's where my book gets the theme name, is Out of Need. I made choices out of need because I had to make a choice, whether I knew it was right or wrong. I just had to make a choice. And it got me into a marriage that became sexually abusive and verbally abusive, and I supported him through all of it. And yeah, it goes on. But there are good parts. there are also good parts. I've had some good parts. I've met some wonderful people along that journey. And just to let you know, it is written, it is by chapter. Each chapter is each year of my life. So I have gone back and relived all these memories by years, and within the years are the events that happened. So it took me 3 years to write this, and it was very, very debilitating.
Yeah.
By the time I got done writing it, I was a mess. And I
bet.
thought by writing it, that it would help, because about half of what's in there is I've never told anybody. No one has ever heard it before. Not my family, not anyone. And I thought by getting this out and writing it, it would help. And what ended up happening is, first of all, I got a really bad publisher, and I edited my editor of my publisher 4 times. So I had to reread all these memories over 4 times. And by the time I got done, I was a basket case. So, but the book itself, it's a book that, people can learn from also. It's not only about my events, but it's about what not to do, to your children. It's about that teasing and verbal accusations and mean things, even if you're teasing or not, can really, really affect a person's brain, especially a child's, who their brain is still developing. And it led to all these things, all these choices I had to make that were all the wrong choices. And I dug myself out and started over, and I kept digging, and then I would start over. And, it's a lot of events, a lot of things. And then the very ending of it, towards the end of it, I ended up taking care of the people that abused me the most.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I ended up taking care of my mother and my brother. So it's kind of, it's kind of like the back cover. That thing that I have on the back cover, that kind of says it all. It's kind of in a nutshell.
Now, we have a psychologist on our show regularly, and he says, for the one bad thing you say to your kids, it takes like 100 good things to make up for that. In other words, you can probably not even make up for when you say bad things to your kids. And who should be reading this book, by the way? It sounds like young fathers should read it, young mothers should read it, because they have no training in anything usually.
Right. People like that can read it. People that want to, if they're not getting support, they need to let people know that they need that support. They need to, and I'll tell you what, it took me this long to tell anyone about the molestation. When you've seen it in the news that people wait 13, 15 years before they'll come forward. It is one of the hardest things on earth to talk about.
Wow.
And but what happens though, the bottom line is that I kept all this stuff inside. I'm now treating an anxiety disorder. And it's mainly because I didn't have that support when I was younger. So this is also a lesson that people need to read it, and they need to say, I need to get help. I'm at this point, and so I need to get some help.
Yep.
Or if you know someone and you've read the book, and they say, you know what, you need to get some help. Because you don't want to live with this stuff for the rest of your life. So
most people who write these books, we have a lot of authors on, they feel it was therapeutic or cathartic to get it out. But what did you get out of the book when you finished writing it?
Well, I'll tell you, initially I thought I would just get it off my chest, get all these memories. I used to have horrible nightmares of it. I still do rarely, but not as much. I had nightmares about the events. I had nightmares about my ex-husband killing me. It went on forever. I thought that this would, get me past it. But actually what I got out of it is the two people that I hated the most, my mother and my brother, I found out why they did the things they did. And I understood more of them, and I no longer hate them. Because I know that my mother in her early life struggled. And she was raised by Swedish parents, actually not even foster parents. And they were very, very hard on her, very, very critical of her. She could hardly move, and anything she did was wrong. And that reflected back onto me for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It didn't on the other kids, but it did on me. But, and I started understanding why she said the things to me. I don't know so much if it was verbal abuse or if it was just her trying to warn me of what has happened to her in the past. So it really made me understand my past.
Your mother at some point thought she lost her husband. He was MIA for a while.
Right.
And
Right.
he finally came back from the war. Now, this probably isn't fair to ask you. I'm guessing you were born in the 50s?
I was born in 54, right.
54.
Yep.
I was going to say, I could get the book and find out. So you might as well tell us. Yeah. I just trying to think. It's confusing because you're so spread out from your siblings. Your dad was in
Right.
World War II, and you were born in 54, way after the war ended. So it's an interesting approach. So if I was going to gift it to somebody, who should I gift this book to?
Well, again, like you said, people that have young kids and they're growing, and they're up, and they're raising their young kids. It's very, it's important that they know what comes out of their mouth will hurt, and it will cause consequences to these kids. It doesn't make any difference. I have a master's degree in psychology, and a child's brain doesn't fully develop until they're 21, possibly 24. They're looking at that. And so these things, even though you're teasing your kids or you're saying something, it could stick in their head forever.
Yep.
And the consequences down the road is absolutely horrible. I mean, it can get magnified. It can cause anxiety. It can cause all kinds of things. It's like when I had foster kids, they would actually get angry if I asked them to do something. And then when I said, but why are you getting angry? They'd say, in a very, very meek voice, I don't know how to do it. So it was very embarrassing for them not to be able to do it. So, for people like parents and anyone that really wants to understand what raising a child is about could read this, because it just has so many things in it that, grab you and just say, I don't want that to happen to my kids.
Yeah.
So you want to give them support. You want to teach them. And that's the main part of being a parent, is always teaching them, never criticize, and make sure that that your kids know that they can support you no matter what. Yeah. So that they can talk to you, and they can be a friend. And as people say, no, you can't be a friend, but you know what? You can be a friend. You can be a parent. You can be a friend too.
Yeah.
It's
amazing what you're saying, because I'm flashing back all my years of raising my kids, and I think I did pretty well, but I can see one little thing, just one little jab that you think is funny or teasing them or something, that could stick with them for forever. So.
Oh, yeah, it certainly can. It certainly can.
All right. Well, listen, for our viewers, by the way, can we get the book? I have your website on the screen, artistryjewelry.net. They can get the books there, right?
It is. The book is there, and it's also on Amazon.
Okay.
So it can be gotten on either one.
Yeah. And I just think it'd be a great holiday gift for people.
Yeah, it would.
It would. I have to go to a lot of houses, dinner parties and stuff this season. I always take a gift. I never go empty-handed, and I thought, another bottle of wine. No. This year I'm giving all books. So for our viewers, that's a hint. Don't go buy one copy of this book. Click 10 times and give them out. It's fun. Next time you go to those people's house, that book will still be on the shelf, I promise. So
that's right, and you can always go back and reference it on it too. It's a good book. It came from my heart writing it. It was very hard.
Yeah,
and I think it would help a lot of people to know that that you can care about those people that do neglect and abuse you, and you just have to be the stronger person. And
Now tell me, later you became a foster parent and you had some real philosophies. Did that come from your growing up or your studies of psychology?
that came from foster care.
Okay.
Foster care, I was able to, my main reason again for getting into foster care was not only the Sheriff's Youth Program issues, but was I didn't want kids to go through what I went through. And so I watched these kids. I learned from them. I realized I had kids that were MR, mildly retarded, and I had all these things set up to teach them how to do and that. And boy, did I find out that they have limitations. And understanding your kids' limitations is such a priority when you raise kids. If they can't do it, they can't do it, you know? And I was trying to force kids to do it, and they were just angry and da-da-da. And the bottom line was is that, like, one of them, his fingers were too big. He just couldn't hold a hammer. You know, he didn't have that coordination. He didn't type. And it took me about 2 or 3 years at the beginning to really understand, you know, that these kids have limitations. You can't expect them to do everything all the time.
Yep.
It isn't possible. I even showed him how to do it, but he just didn't have the
Amazing.
coordination in the hands and that stuff.
What's amazing is you were able to have that insight to, hey, they can do what they can do, so let's figure that out and work with them then. Well, you're an amazing person. S. Oliphant is where you'll find Suzanne's work. S. Oliphant. I like to buy on the author's website whenever I can. But also on Amazon. We're so far out of time, Suzanne. Any last thoughts for our viewers on the books or anything else in the world?
No, just you know, remember what I said about those kids. You know, make sure you're teaching, supporting, and caring and loving them. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they will run into problems that you can't blame them for down the road.
Right. Suzanne, you're inspiring to me.
Thank you.
Give me a little shock wake-up, too, for many of us watching. So we need to read this book to understand ourselves, it sounds like.
Right.
For our viewers, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with another author right after this.